basically explaining some of the things I have misgivings about, and I have different degrees of strength of, hey, I'm a little uncomfortable with this, and all the way up to, I'm personally firmly convinced that you're mistaken about this. So
I would love that. All right,
spectrum.
Yeah, so should we make this a public conversation or a private one? I'm totally happy with you criticizing me in public. It's up to you.
Yeah, I mean, so the main thing I just want to say is, I'm operating on my own accord right now.
Yeah.
I took it upon myself to reach out to you on behalf of, I'm just trying to work with people to make sure that it's available as, in the right places. And so I can't speak for my father fundamentally. He hasn't delegated that to me. So
totally get that. And we're on the exact same page. I want you to, first of all, when it comes to the stuff that we're working on, blast away. You're not going to offend me. I just want to just do the best job we can. Right. And I'm not pretending to be omniscient. But let's talk, if you want to just describe what you've been working on. And Garth is your father?
Yes.
Yes. Awesome. And what's the story there? Because it sounds like quite the story. And is he in Massachusetts as well? Or
yeah, he's in Massachusetts as well. He lives
Okay.
about an hour away from me, which really narrows down the range of places where we could be, because Massachusetts is a small place.
If you say so. Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, the story goes back about 12 years when he retired, and he retired from electrical engineering and went into full-time ministry / child rearing when my mother passed away. So he very quickly developed in his research, he really developed an eye for some of the things that, just a slightly different perspective from standard academia, and academic mindset toward the Greek language. And he started writing articles about things that he thought that mainstream missed. Okay, tweak here. Oh, everybody's arguing about this verse. It doesn't say this. It doesn't say that. And what we realized was a lot of the things that he was doing was, it wasn't really about, oh, it actually says this. We have all these people saying, oh, it says this or it says this, but in reality, it says neither. And so all these arguments is like, well, what are you guys arguing about? The Bible doesn't even address this. So his methodology was to break down, and he started calling it hyper literal, break down and go into the grammatical layout. And he developed a mapping for the grammatical forms of Greek, as well as, of course, the lexical. And he's trying to bring this all out and say, okay, this is what it actually says. Now, what can we work with from there? And of course, a lot of the people who enjoy his work, including myself, would go to him at different times and say, why don't you just do the whole New Testament like this? And I always just remember when I asked him, his response was just so, I just really appreciate it, because it was also, oh, well, all the translations, they're good enough. And, I wouldn't be improving that much. And who would even read it anyway? If I had another life to live, maybe, but, there's just so many other things I could be doing. And so it was just this mindset of, it's not like, oh, we have this amazing thing that we need to bring to the world that everybody's missed until now, just a different perspective. And he almost didn't even think it was worth doing until one day he got bored. That's my words, not his.
Yeah.
But
that's great.
Yeah. So in August of 2024, he messaged me and he said, check this out. And he had the first 5 chapters of Matthew in his.
This was last August, I assume.
So right, 18 months ago.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And he said, oh, check this out. He had the first 5 chapters of Matthew, and I loved it. It took me 18 verses to realize that we had something special, because Matthew 1:18 has what I consider to be really an important thing that everybody has missed. And it's not something that overturns, standard Christianity. It's something that reinforces it. But it's like everybody thinks that Matthew 1:18 says it this way, but in reality, it's something just this much different. That's
Well,
that much more
since
impactful.
we're here, what is it? What is the Matthew 118 breakthrough here?
So English people tell their stories like this. I'm going to tell you a story about how such and such happened. Now, this happened, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened, and then such and such happened.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how Matthew 118 is laid. Matthew 118 through 25 is laid out. Now, the birth of Jesus is this way.
Mm-hmm.
Then this happened, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened, and then he was born.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look and read carefully, you realize that the word for birth at the end of the chapter is a different word that is translated to birth in 118. And the word itself is I don't pronounce Greek. I read Greek,
Mm-hmm.
but it is from the Genesis root.
Mm-hmm.
And really, what I'm convinced of is it's all one thought. The verse itself is one thought. This is talking about his conception.
Mm-hmm.
His conception happened this way before his mother came together with Joseph. She was found to be with child. So it's one unit,
Mm-hmm.
but it's really more emphatically affirming that Jesus, his earthly life started at his conception, not at his birth.
Mm-hmm. Well, I especially with the abortion culture we have, it's an important. That's not the only place you could look to in Scripture to make that case, but it's an important case nonetheless for obvious reasons. And that's an interesting. I definitely never heard that before, so I'll have to look into that one. But that is very fascinating. It's just was there a follow-up thought to that?
Yeah, there was actually a little bit of back and forth on that word as we
Mm.
learned more about Greek as we went through this process. It was originally transliterated Genesis, and then we ended up realizing that there's a difference between one new and two news in the gen root. One is to become, and one is to beget. And so it's actually the state of begetting. That's
Mhm.
actually straight up what the word means. And I was so excited the first time I heard a scholar independently kind of talk about this and come to a similar conclusion about that word. And I was like, wait, we knew this.
Well, I'm first of all, I'm just a huge amount of gratitude to yourself and to your dad and to anyone else that has a willingness to just go wrestle with the texts as we have them and let them weigh on you rather than trying to impose something on the text. I think we have a lot of work in global Christianity in undoing a lot of errors and a lot of misconceptions and a lot of presuppositions that are foreign to the text itself, to your point, right? And so that doesn't, that's not always going to be an easy work, but it's a vitally important work, and it takes a lot of bravery and it takes a lot of courage and frankly a whole lot of work to even attempt it. And most people don't for all those reasons. So kudos to you and to your dad, and anyone else helping. And this is so now you have the New Testament. Just the status update here is you have the New Testament finished, and now you're kind of opening up to anyone for input and feedback, that sort of thing. Is that kind of where you're at, or where would you say you're at right now?
Yeah, so it took a couple weeks from when he shared it with me to when he actually put it on his webpage as a hyperlink rather than just
Which is wiebefamily.org. Do I spell that out here? Okay.
WIEBE family.org.
Yeah. Okay.
And then you would typically go directly to /interest.htm, or of course /GHT.htm. Would go there directly, but interest would be the main page for all his articles. So it was only a couple weeks after he shared it with me that he considered himself to be stable enough. The first few chapters he kept going back and changing some of his conventions. Really, he didn't stabilize until the end of Mark, roughly speaking, when it came to overall consistency, overall style. But it was public on his page from about mid-October of. You froze. I don't know if you hear me still.
All right. Sorry about that. We got cut off.
No worries.
We were just saying something to the effect of the Wiebe family. And actually, I lost it. I don't know, but I was
No
looking.
worries. I know you froze, so I knew where
I
you
did.
stopped.
I did freeze.
So-
I'm back now.
So your question was, so what's the status right now? Are
Yes.
you've finished and you're releasing this for public comment. In reality, the answer to that is it's been available for public comment from about mid-October of 2024. So as soon as my father was generally stable with his text, he just had it publicly on his website saying, okay, if you take issue with this, if you find an error or anything like that, email me and I'll fix it. That's his mindset, right? Is okay, show me what I got wrong and why, and I'll fix it. And I took that advice very seriously, and I've submitted about 3,600 comments over the last 16 months.
That's great.
So
we're not. How many other? Well, actually, I did see that there were other contributors as well.
So he's named people who have contributed, and that's a couple comments here and there.
Yeah. That's great. And your family is great. I can see there's on the website. I can see the resemblance between your mom and your dad and yourself. This is it looks like a very happy family you got over there.
Right.
Anyway, that's great. So, man, that's very funny. You must have a pretty good relationship with your dad. I hope.
Well, I'll say it's better in the last 16 months than it ever has been. I really appreciate him, but it's been a very surreal experience to have such close interaction with him as a result of this project.
Well, I'm glad for the improvement of relations, whatever the story is there.
It's not from negative positive. I'm just
yeah. It's co-working on something is a different relationship entirely, no matter what the prior relationship is.
Exactly.
I'm actually just realizing I'm on the website now, and actually had never discovered the study tool. I'll share my screen briefly here. I had never realized the study tool, all the morphology, and there's just a lot of stuff here on the website of. Oops, I'm selecting stuff I didn't intend to. But yeah, there's. The amount of work that's been put into this is quite a lot. And yeah, there's the contributors and all the rest. All right. So I mean, anything else? So the project has been available for public comment for a long time. You've been doing that, and then what's next? I guess is the New Testament, Old Testament is kind of a possibility, but kind of a pipe dream right now. Is that more or less where things are at?
Yeah, I can't speak to that, right? So
yeah,
I would like to work on the Old Testament. I personally have my personal opinion, which I have not shared with him yet, is that we should just do a Septuagint translation and link that up, because the hyperliteral the Greek language connections from the Septuagint are probably going to be of immense value in New Testament interpretation. And the way that I have the study tool and clicking around and context searches and things like that, you have not explored through that yet. You'll be able to take a look. But I just feel like it would be a lot of value to have a Septuagint just from what were they thinking during the time of the New Testament, not necessarily presenting the Septuagint as the inspired original, but just that I think it would have value. But I haven't talked to him about that yet.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure it will definitely have value. What other I'd just be curious to hear what other surprises have come out of the conversation or have emerged. Out of the work, I suppose. Matthew chapter 1. I know there's lots, but just a few offhand that have been notable favorites for you.
Yeah. So what I really like is almost every time that I've encountered a supposed Bible contradiction that someone's presenting, Jesus said this and then he said that, and it's like these are contradiction, and you really just take it to the hyper literal level or layer. And there's no contradiction there anymore. I was just having someone ask me about, Judas versus Judas's two different mechanisms of death, and And while you can
The
resolve,
hanging and the hanging and the blood and the guts spilling out, sort of a thing. Yeah.
and while you can resolve that in English, you don't have to appeal to hyperliteral. You don't have to appeal to the original Greek. I'm going to say it, the way it flows, the way the explanation flows in the hyperliteral, to me, just seems it's straightforward and obvious that it's not a contradiction. You know, we've noticed there are a couple places where I don't have any off the top of my head, because you would just find one and you're like, oh, that's so cool, and then you'd move on. Oh, that's so
no,
cool.
There's so many of them as well, I'm sure.
There really are a lot of them where it's just like, wait, it really does say this. Or you know, a lot of the times my general perception has been, we often as Christians, especially if you're studying the scriptures filled with the Holy Spirit, you often know what it means, and even if it doesn't actually quite say it. And when we got to the hyperliteral level, it was almost as if it was like, oh wait, it always said this,
right?
You know.
Yeah.
So that's been my perception. I apologize. I don't have anything that comes to mind immediately. They just pop in during the course of conversation. So you'd have to.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
My memory with something specific.
Well, I guess if we're going to talk specifics, I mean, is there anything else about the project that you want to share? Or should we dive into some of your critiques of some of the stuff we've been working on, just with me specifically, I guess?
Sure. I'll happily. We can shift gears.
Sure.
I think you should. Well, I guess the main thing is you did briefly mention the GHT study tool. Okay, so I wrote that. I had gotten bored one day and I was doing a statistical analysis of where my father's mistakes were, and I was showing him that the decaying exponential, because he would always get frustrated every so often when his mistakes would seem to spike, and I was showing him like the general trend is decaying exponential. You have a lot of things that we had to go back and change in Matthew, and later on not so many. And I asked him what he thought about that when I sent him that graph. He said, "You have too much time on your hands. Can you make me a website?" So I already had all the framework, all the morphology and the Strong's numbers and the interlinear everything, because I was using that as my checking. So I actually had like this database with a word level analysis of the text, and so I just went from there, and I started developing the framework and just kept going from there. And then once he finished, so that was in July or August was when I first built the website. Took about a month to get it fully, actual functional. And then development stagnated on that for a little while just because there wasn't anything obvious to do. And then as soon as he finished on the 6th of January, I just started getting all sorts of bug reports and comments and hey, can you do this? So he's been spending a lot of time in the study tool over the last month or so.
It's a good, study tools are so important. I'm curious to ask you about the study tool itself. Actually, what were your sources when you did make that the first time?
Well, what do you mean? What were the sources?
I mean, just the alignment and the morphology. Like you had Strong's numbers. Did you pull from open data sets, or where did you find data sets to pull from? I guess.
Yeah. So I'll be honest. The Strong's numbers and morphology codes come from Bible Hub.
Okay.
I scraped Bible Hub. There were some errors, so that was a lot of fun to. The more I would, because I basically have this list of Greek inflections and then their Strong's and morphology code, and then I would actually manually apply that to the English word in my dad's translation, word for word, and so that was my checking tool, right? So I would have a Greek text up in front of me, and I would back translate in the same manner that Scrivener did for the King James Version to make his Textus Receptus 1894. And so I reconstructed the Greek text that way, and then I'd have to apply the morphology codes to it and Strong's numbers, and I had to redesign some things because there's no way for the English to distinguish at the word level. We don't have an inflection for the accusative case or the nominative case. So I actually made up it for some words that are spelled the same between the two. I had to make up a morphology code that merges the two. So rather than saying this is an accusative noun or this is a nominative noun, I'd have to say this is either one, because I don't know, because I'm using an algorithm to build this, and I don't have this as like. So I'm actually stepping away from the degree of explicitness on the morphology. And we actually that would go back to your question, right? What is some of the things we discovered? I don't think it was during. I don't think this was during the course of the translation. I think my father discovered it before, but where John 4:25 says the God is spirit, he actually switches from putting spirit in the nominative case to accusative case, and it's spelled the same, and so it actually belongs with the previous verse. So it's not saying that. It's not saying God is spirit. It's not saying God's not spirit. Taking that out doesn't mean God's not spirit. It's just that's not the point that Jesus is making in that moment.
All right, wait, we're going there, John. We have John 4:25. Is that what you said?
23 and 24. So I got it wrong. So
4:23 and 24.
You were there. You're looking. Well, yeah.
Here we go. Yes. Worship the Father in spirit and in truth. You mean right here?
Nope, not yet. So then, for also the Father is seeking to whom the worshiping same, and then spirit. So it's so basically, and I would paraphrase that, smooth it over a little. For also the Father is seeking to those who are worshiping the same spirit. So in other words, he's saying, like, the key is that we're all worshiping the same spirit. That's kind of the point of that phrase. And this is my personal understanding based on what I've meditated on. But then it moves on to, and then God is necessitating or expecting or requiring those who worship him to be worshiping in spirit and truth. So it's just the whole God is spirit is just not there, and that's not the point. It'll take you a minute. It'll take you a minute to wrap your head around it, but once you do, you're like, oh, okay, I see.
No. I think I'm following. And I'm just pulling it up in the BSB just for context here as well. And so.
Well, you're actually able to do that if you click panels there on the settings.
Of course.
You click parallel translations. Down. You have to select parallel translation. Yep.
Acknowledge. There we go.
And that yep.
So God is spirit, and worshipers must worship him in spirit and in truth. But you're saying, for the Father is seeking such as these to worship him in spirit. So him is from auton right there, just to the left of the 24. Yep.
Yep, right there. And that literally means same.
Yes.
But they used it like a pronoun a lot of the time. So we just smooth that over and we think pronoun. So what it is the Father is seeking such as these to worship the same spirit.
Yes.
Or who are worshiping the same spirit.
Or worshiping in the same manner, in the same way. Yeah.
Well, that's possible, but it also could be that they're worshiping the Spirit of God.
Yeah.
Right? So that would be another way to. So there's a little bit of room there, but
yeah. But it's the same. So either way, yeah. I know. I see your point here.
Basically, we've got the same Lord.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I agree on that. Well, that's very helpful and very interesting. All right. Well, then, recommend anyone to check that out if you haven't. If you want to look into these things. And one of the things I've been working on, and I'd love your input on, is what is designed to be actually, in many ways, kind of the opposite of what you're doing. With the hyperliteral Bible, you're trying to make a Bible that is as hyperliteral as possible, which is a very, very valuable and worthy goal. Like same versus him right there is a very important distinction.
Right.
And now you can see how translators translate it as him.
But they're not wrong to do that.
They're not wrong, but it loses but you are missing the flow of thought, right? So anyway, what I'm now calling the currently working title, the EAB, the essential the essential ancient Bible is it's designed to basically be a compromising Bible translation that hopefully captures the as much of the ancient perspective of the biblical authors and the worldview of the biblical authors in a way that is not too unfamiliar for modern audiences, but is taking people back closer to the ancient worldview, but not all the way there. This is not designed to be, a study Bible. It's not designed to be. It's designed to be a way to move you closer to the ancient sources. That's the goal, but it's not going to be a totally faithful effort in that regard, because so many things would be foreignizing and weird. For example, if we were being very honest, and actually I don't know what the GHT does, but if you're being totally transparent, it might be best to translate Jesus as Joshua and never say the word Jesus ever, for example. Stuff like that, where it's like, the Hebrew Jesus is not a wrong translation. It's a path. It's Greek to Latin to what is it? Greek. Yeah, Greek. Yeah, Hebrew, Greek, Latin, English. Right. So that's the path that you go. But if you're going straight from Hebrew to English, it's Yeshua to Joshua. And the reason that connection is important is because Jesus is meant to be, in the connection of those who read the Bible, he's meant to be the new and better Joshua. Joshua led people into the promised land. He succeeded Moses. Jesus is leading people into the kingdom of God, succeeding Moses and the Torah, and the, that's the shadow. He's the, all those sorts of things. But there's lots and lots of other things we could do. Anyway, I would love to know, any specific problems that you've seen in terms of stuff I've been working on that you wanted to point out, and don't spare my feelings. I won't be offended.
So I'd have to. I was thinking about it. What would I start with, right?
Sure.
Do I come out the gate swinging, or do I?
You can go out of the gate swinging, whatever you want.
Do I pick something really simple or something complex? I'm going to start with something pretty simple, pretty direct. I think you're being inconsistent by translating Gehenna to hell, because you're transliterating all the other related words. So you should just transliterate. You shouldn't relegate that to a footnote. I don't see why we need to import hell, which has all of our Dante's Inferno, connotations that have been built into the word. Might as well just stick with Gehenna rather than using hell. That would be my opinion.
It's not a bad thought. I have gone back and forth on that. That might be the better way to go. Certainly in certain contexts, it absolutely would be. It really, I thought about that, and I was okay with it as long as hell was referencing final ultimate judgment.
Sure.
People always confuse hell. People often think hell is a current thing. People are throwing people into hell right now and people die. It's like, nope, hell doesn't exist, or at least it's not in use, however you want to frame it. But hell is a reality that comes about based upon whatever your interpretation is at the end of judgment. After the dead are raised, the books are opened, people are judged. So anyway, that's a fair criticism. I see your point there.
And we see that directly, right, at the end of Revelation, right? Cast in the lake of fire. This is the second death. Okay, it literally defines what the second death is. It's the lake of fire. So,
and in some cases, Gehenna or even the lake of fire might be better than hell because of the Dante's Infernos tropes and all the rest. There's so much baggage that's imported into the word hell that it probably is better to lose the category altogether and just go more direct. So I'll put more thought into that, but I don't think you're wrong.
Mm. I guess my next comment, I would say I'm going to send you my notes. I made a copy of your document, and so I'll give you all my notes. They go into greater detail. I put a comment on the header to a note on Greek dualism in the biblical worldview. And what I would say is, while I generally agree with the content of that thing, I think it was a good example of your 90-something page document is presenting a case for translating rather than theologizing.
Yeah.
But then you really proceed to do a lot of theologizing in your apologetic. And I would say that there, I think, and I'm saying this is a general criticism on the entire document. I'm just saying that for me, it really stood out in that conversation on Greek dualism and the biblical worldview, which is really just, there needs to be some sort of discipline when you're presenting, hey, I'm trying to not theologize, by actually not theologizing, which it's a challenge, I admit.
Well, so to call that out, so in the document, and I'll make available in the link anyone who wants to reference the current version of it, and I'll probably update it based upon our conversation, and even actually going backwards to hell and to talk about both these points at once, and I do say it in the document, but I should put it more front and center, where this really is that, like, that's the aim is to translate and not theologize. That's the overall aim, but this is a compromising approach where my goal with this translation is I want to go as far as we can, but I want to maintain, and that's why I kind of left hell in currently, is because it's like I don't want it to be so unfamiliar to someone that they're not going to read it. Now, whether that's a good idea or not, it's a separate category, but that was kind of the thought process. Now there's a separate work that I'm gonna undertake. This is the compromising version of that, and the goal is to be front and center with, like, hey, this is a compromised translation, and here's why. Like, I want to put that front and center and just make that very apparent for readers, and so they know what they're getting into. But the goal would be to have a second translation, which would be the AVT, which is the Ancient Voice Translation. Now, the goal of the Ancient Voice Translation would be, as much as possible, to go all the way to wherever you're saying of, like, hey, Jesus is showing up as Joshua. We're not theologizing anywhere. It's not transliterating. It's not hyperliteral. Well, okay, I'm not saying not theologizing anywhere, but the point is, it's not transliterating. It's not hyperliteralism. It's just a unapologetic modern English translation with as little theologizing as possible. There probably will still be some of that, but the goal is to really weed that out as aggressively as we possibly can. And the goal of this translation, the essential ancient Bible, is to say, hey, essentially it's kind of ancient, but really it's not. So that's really kind of what I'm trying to do here. But so your points are fair.
So then you need to correct the title. So because what you just said there made me realize that I've been interpreting you a little bit out of place. Mm-hmm. Essential is a word that carries a broad range in the English word. It has a broad semantic range.
Sure.
And so when I hear essential ancient Bible, I think to the essence, to the essential, right. Where you're saying essentially an ancient Bible. Which is,
well,
okay,
I was struggling. That's I don't know what to call it. Like we could call it the CAB, the compromised ancient Bible. I don't know what we call it, but, like, I think, to your point, like, I do need, and that's where I said, it's a working title as well, where we do want to have a title that does communicate that, like, hey, it's a Bible translation. And I also want to, I want to communicate it's a Bible. I want to communicate this is a more faithful Bible translation than what you're probably reading, ESV, NIV, even BSB, in terms of moving you closer to the ancient world. But this is 10 steps, not 100. That's, I don't know what that title looks like, but I want to find that title. But anyway, your points are well taken overall, is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. You have time for at least one more?
Yeah, please.
All right. So this is one that I think that I picked to show to you today, rather than just leave it in the comments, because
you can share your screen too if you want. By the way,
I'm about to do that.
Okay, go right ahead.
I'm about to demonstrate the power of my study tool, because
please do, man.
So let's take a look at this. So I've got my screen here, and we got it right here. Okay, so I'm objecting to your choice to remove so-called from 1 Corinthians 8:5, if there be said gods, if of into heaven, if of upon the earth, even as there being gods many and lords many. You correctly identify that the word so-called, so-called, is inappropriate. I agree with you. So, but the problem is by removing the word entirely, I'm not comfortable with that. I think we got to be very, very, very careful to remove words from Scripture. I mean, I get it, the definite article, all the time. Okay, and it doesn't flow right in English. You got to remove the definite article. Okay, fine. Unless you're hyperliteral like we are, remove the definite article in a lot of places. But when it comes to a word that carries meaning, that carries, well, the definite article carries meaning too, but when it comes to a word that is really, I mean, it was placed there deliberately. We don't get the luxury of taking it out. And so I've pulled up here parallel places where legomenoi is being used. And I can actually, so I can click to search, and then I can actually click being said, and that's going to give us even more because that brings up the singular forms, legomenos. So what I find most notable is, okay, so you're saying legomenoi does not invoke doubt as to, it's not like, oh, let's see, how do you write? Oh, you have it in two different places. That's another thing I'm having issue with your introduction. You have your polemic for different changes scattered throughout the thing. So reorganization is in order, but you basically, the way you say it is so-called makes a what's the word that you used?
Falsely called or mistakenly called.
Oh, adds skepticism not present in the Greek.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So exactly correct. Matthew 1:16. Out of whom is begotten Jesus, the being said anointed. Okay, we would never translate that to so-called Christ. Okay, so
that's such a great point.
so right off the bat, we can look at how this word is being said. Okay, the city being said Nazareth. Okay, so-called Nazareth. No, Simon, so-called Peter. Okay, maybe that's a little bit closer, but still, Simon. Like, there's no doubt that Simon is called Peter. That's So all throughout, what we see is this word is being used as without any skeptical connotations to it.
Sure.
Although I think I did find a couple cases where it was like, oh, this is like they're calling themselves it, but they're not really. So there is a case to be made that's within the semantic range, but the word itself does not carry that semantic range. You have to look at it in the context. Yep. So all I have to say is unless you want to take legomene out, or legomenos, legomenos, take it out of every other place, I don't see how you have a right to take it out here, right? You would need to be consistent with how you're choosing to do it. So what you need to do is you need to go back to the drawing board and find a way to phrase 1 Corinthians 8:5 that basically says, even if there are what are called gods, and still include that phrase being said.
Yeah. Do you have any suggestion translations off the top of your head?
Sure. So here's so I did notice that when you said legomenon simply means called or named, not so called in the dismissive sense, I did kind of acknowledge that, well, I don't like the term named, because that would come from a noma, not legomenoi. That could work better in English flow. So basically, even if they're being named gods, maybe. Let's see, the phrases that I came up with in my comment is, if there are those which are called gods, if there are those who are called gods, and if there are what are called gods. Those would be the ways I would render it in nice English. It's a little bit awkward, but you have to find something where you're not just dropping the word. That would be my opinion.
That's great, man. I appreciate it. If there's any other hot takes, I'm open to more of them, because this is, the EAB working title was V0. I have it listed as V's version 0.1, not even version 1, just 0.1. So I appreciate any and all feedback. This is super helpful. Thank you.
You want to tackle Hebrews 8:8?
Sure.
All right. So we have Hebrews 8:8, and then of course we have the previous verse that gives us the context. And you argue in the same way that the net does, that there's a potential for ambiguity there, and of course the net resolves the ambiguity by going the opposite way, saying he's finding fault with the covenant, not with the people. And what I observe is I don't think that's justified by the text. And here's what's really cool is, if I have So what I basically said is I said, rather than preserve ambiguity and introduces grammar not present in the original text, the accusative case marks the direct object of a verb. Which verb? Okay, so the question is, which verb is same attached to? Is it attached to blaming, or is it attached to he is saying? Okay, and so the net would argue that it is saying he is saying to them. Okay, and so it's attached to the same, and that's the ambiguity that is being presented. And what I observed, though, is if we were to check all the other cases where lege is translated to said to, sorry, here we go. It's always in the dative case. Don't worry, I'm aware of the manuscript variation. I'm going to get there. It's always in the dative case, not the accusative case. So he is saying to them. In other words, when you say something, the person you're saying it to is the indirect object, not the direct object. Accusative is the direct object. Dative is, I'm being reductive here, I acknowledge, but dative is the indirect object. So if you want to say he's saying to someone, then you would use the indirect object. So you see that here, all these places, saying to, saying to, saying to. Well, now this shows that the verb to say does not take the hearer as the direct object. Okay, even if we go with the majority text. Oh, sorry, I jumped ahead. The indirect object of to say is who it is said to. The Greek form would thus be dative, and so we would expect lege atois with an iota instead of a upsilon, rather than atos lege. Even if we were to go, we were to take this word here and switch it to what the majority text says. Okay, it's about 50-50 according to the Center for New Testament Research. Okay, so it's plausible that it could be atois, and then you have the dative. Even if it's dative, I would still argue that we don't have justification to attach it to the lege, and here's why. It's unprecedented to swap the word order. In every case of verb, dative, to say. Okay, so you have verb, dative, to say. Don't worry about the postpositive. That's irrelevant to this. Okay, this could be there or not be there. In reality, we would always translate it before blaming. Okay, so every case you have three words. You have a verb, you have a dative, noun, pronoun, or adjective, and then you have the to say verb. The dative is the indirect object of the first verb, and I can show you that with my advanced search. So here we go. Here we go. So here I have, we're searching for any verb, any noun or adjective in the dative, and then any to say, that's Strong's 3004. And I've enabled search according to ordered and adjacent. So we're looking at them in order and they have to be together, which does mean we're missing the post positive, but that's okay. You can search that separately. Okay. So is revealed to same saying. Okay. So the messenger of the Lord, the angel of the Lord, is revealed to Joseph saying Joseph. You would not translate this as is revealed saying to Joseph, Joseph, son of David. That doesn't flow right. And if you review every single one of these context places where that grammatical construction is used, I could not find a single one that really makes sense to try and rearrange them. So in other words, what I'm saying is because it's blaming same he's saying, or blaming to same he is saying, that word order is not as flexible as we'd like to make it think. And I was a little shocked to see that the net actually includes in its footnotes, and they just kind of hand wave the plausibility of that, in my opinion. But then once you count, so you have a 50-50 probability between a verb form an inflection that's the accusative case. There's no case at all.
Sure.
If it's accusative, there's no ambiguity. If it's dative, then there's still not really any ambiguity, because they're just 40 cases in the New Testament where it doesn't. You wouldn't rearrange it in translation. So unless you want to rearrange it in translation in all those other cases to be consistent, I don't think there's a case to be made.
No, you make a great point. I'm following the logic. My gifting and my skill set isn't even in translation at all, really. My gifting and my skill set, if anything, is in understanding the ancient context in the ancient world. And my goal here is not to introduce new errors, but just to correct the ones that I know are wrong, and just move us in that direction. Expanse, firmament versus expanse, for example, where it's
I'm
like,
fine with that.
But a lot of people would find that very uncomfortable, where it's like, hey, you just can't make a plausible case that the rakia, you can't make a case that rakia, the semantic range of that word translates onto sky or onto expanse. In English, there's more to that word than there's more to rakia than English is expressed in any of those things. And we are going to be, again, it's going to be essentially compromising. There's going to be tons of places where we are very inconsistent with it, but it's the goal is to take someone and just make them a little uncomfortable, and then make a larger translation that would, if we were to succeed in our goals, I don't know, it would be like, basically the sister or the brother to the hyperliteral translation that you have, which is to say the hyperliteral obviously is just meant to be hyperliteral. Ours would be, intending to be modern English, while still staying true to the hyperliteral essence as much as possible in the ancient context as much as possible. Is it going to be possible? Probably not. But the goal isn't to make it perfect. The goal is to just say, hey, this translation does this thing. This translation is going to take you farther down this path. And these are going to be good reference points if you're looking for this kind of a perspective. Things like capturing not just the words of the Greek, but the style and the prose. Luke's very formal, very declarative, very, very high. Hebrew is extremely high prose. Mark is going to be more like scribbling on a page, like that sort of stuff, where it's like trying to capture the essence of not just the text, but of the context of the text as much as we can, and bring that into a translation as here's one way it could work. Now, at the end of the day, there is no substitute for the Greek and for the Hebrew for learning the languages. At the end of the day, all translations are going to be compromised in some way, shape, or form, but not so compromised that the original message isn't going to carry through. It's just how much of the nuance are you losing? The only thing I want to be careful of is let's not introduce errors as much as we possibly can. And the BSB, the ESV, the NIV, as you know, they're not deserving of the gold stars that they have in the mindset of most people. In my mind, there's some very clear errors in here from an ancient. There's just very clear errors. Now, I just want to read the Bible as much as possible, where it's like I want to at least know there aren't clear errors in these. Let's say, I don't know, 400 passages or whatever, something like that. So. Anyway, I'll give you closing thoughts, closing remarks. Anything you want to say before we wrap up? Contradict me, whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, I can't agree. I can't disagree with what you just said there. As a general rule of thumb, right? All translations are some form of compromise. We've obviously, in the hyperliteral, compromised readability and good English in order to capture what basically I've started calling Greeklish,
which is great. It's a fantastic resource.
Right. So I acknowledge there are compromises, and you what you want to do is you want to clearly state your translation goal and then stick to it and be consistent with it.
Yeah.
As far as the Berean Standard Bible, I'm personally, I haven't spent too much time on it because I do generally prefer the World English Bible. Actually, the main reason is because I prefer public domain. So yeah. Great. And then the Bible
the BSB is public domain.
I know.
Yeah. Okay.
The Bible bot on Discord does not have the BSB right now, and so it has the World English Bible. So I ended up with the World English Bible. With that being said, I've you know, a lot of your, I noticed a couple of your things that you're moving. And I'm like, oh yeah, good move. And then I'd go check the World English Bible, and you're just basically copying it instead. And I'm like, okay, well, there you go.
I haven't referenced it at all, but I should.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I know.
I was kind of curious. I wanted to pick your brain a little bit. I know we're running close on time for you, but I wanted to pick your brain a little bit because you briefly mentioned that the World English Bible is not really well respected. Are you just saying that matter of factly, as in just observing that there's not really a lot of attention to it, or do you personally think that it also falls short in some way?
Just the lack of attention, and it is clunky in its readability in places. It's not a matter of the quality of it, unfortunately, you know.
Yeah.
But no one is evaluating these things on the quality, unfortunately. So that would be my stance on it.
Okay.
And I know the guy who did it. He's an amazing guy. He's been a huge gift to the world in a whole host of ways that we would not be able to do what we've been doing if not for him, Michael, and his work. So I do have to run right now. Last question: how do you use the Discord Bible bot? I have to ask you really quick.
You would add it to you would invite it to your server.
How do you personally use it? I'm just
how
curious.
do I use it? In conversation, it's just very helpful because when I want to reference a verse, I can just type the verse reference.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's awesome. Super helpful, man. Hey, Nathan, thank you so much. God bless to you and your father. I have to run because my wife has to leave and I have to go watch her son right now. But a pleasure talking, man. And please keep the critiques coming.
Sure.
And likewise, and we will definitely put your hyperliteral translation on the API as soon as we can.
Yep,
so,
and let me know what support you need for that.
Yes, if you put the Old Testament on there, we'll put that in there too. So everyone, if you're watching this, go check out the Free Bible API for the GHT. All right. Thanks, friends. God bless.
All right, God bless.